If you love ghost stories, folklore, and all things mysterious, you need to make a trip to Haunted in downtown Tullahoma, Tennessee. Just a short drive from Nashville, this family-owned Gothic shop is filled with the strange, unusual, and downright fascinating. This isn't a big box store full of mass-produced decorations. Haunted specializes in handmade curiosities, Gothic decor, metaphysical supplies, green witchcraft essentials, and unique pieces created by independent artists. Whether you're decorating or just looking for something you won't find anywhere else, Haunted is worth the trip. Visit them on 125 West Lincoln Street in Tullahoma, or shop online at hauntedstore.net. That's right, hauntedstore.net. Haunted, curated for the strange and unusual. The Great Lakes have always demanded respect. On calm mornings, the water stretches toward the horizon like polished glass, reflecting the sky so perfectly that it's difficult to tell where one ends and the other begins. But beneath that quiet surface lies another world. Cold, black water conceals reefs sharp enough to tear apart wooden hulls, and sudden squalls can turn tranquil seas into walls of towering waves. Thousands of ships have vanished beneath those waters, taking with them cargo, captains, and entire crews. But according to some who have sailed them, certain things refuse to sink. I'm Alan Sircy, the American historian. This is Southern Ghost Stories. Among all the legends whispered in the Great Lake ports, one schooner has never quite disappeared. Its name was the Erie Board of Trade. She was a proud lumber schooner built for work rather than beauty, though many who sailed aboard her thought she possessed both. Her mast stood tall against the horizon. Her white canvas carried her swiftly across the inland seas, and she spent her days hauling Michigan timber to growing cities around the lakes: Chicago, Milwaukee, Detroit, Cleveland. Port after port depended upon vessels just like her. Life aboard a schooner in the early 1800s was anything but easy. The days began before sunrise. Sailors climbed rigging slick with dew, hauled heavy lines until their hands bled, and spent endless hours battling weather that seemed to invent new ways to kill a man. Every creak in the timbers reminded them that the lake held the advantage. One snapped mast, one hidden reef, one careless mistake could send every soul aboard to the bottom. Yet sailors developed a peculiar relationship with danger. Many believed the lakes had personalities. They spoke of stretches of water that seemed cursed, of phantom lights dancing across the horizon, and of ghostly vessels appearing in the fog only to vanish moments later. Superstitions became as much part of life aboard a ship as rope and canvas. Whistling on deck could summon a gale. A black bird landing on a mast foretold death. And if a sailor died aboard a vessel, well, many believed he never truly left. The Erie Board of Trade carried a crew of experienced lakemen. Among them was a sailor everyone simply called Scotty. No one seemed to remember exactly where he'd come from. Like many Great Lakes sailors, he drifted from ship to ship until finding steady work aboard the schooner. He was dependable, quiet, and willing to take the difficult jobs that sometimes the others avoided. If something needed fixing high in the rigging or required crawling into cramped spaces below the deck, Scotty was usually the first guy to volunteer. The captain trusted him, and that trust would prove fatal. One morning while the schooner prepared for another voyage, the captain noticed that repairs were needed high above the deck near the mast. To reach the damaged rigging required a boatswain's chair, a simple wooden plank suspended by ropes that could be hauled high into the air. It was an old piece of equipment, weathered by years of exposure to wind, rain, and the sun. Some aboard believed it should have been replaced a long time ago. But ships were expected to work, not spend money. Scotty climbed into the chair, and he didn't complain. The crew below returned to their duties while he was slowly raised toward the mast. Higher and higher he climbed, the lake breeze tugging at his clothing as a schooner gently rocked beneath him. Soon he was nearly 60 feet above the deck, balancing carefully while making repairs with hammer and tools. From below, the men could hear him working. The steady tapping echoed across the deck. Everything appeared normal. Then, without warning, there came a sharp, cracking sound. The rope snapped. For one terrible instant, Scotty simply hung suspended in space. Then, gravity claimed him. He plunged downward, striking heavy wooden cross trees on the mast with sickening force before crashing onto the deck below. The impact echoed through the schooner like a cannon blast. Crewmen rushed toward him. The captain was first to reach his side. But there was nothing anybody could do. Scotty never regained consciousness. The lake had claimed another sailor. The crew buried him ashore before continuing their voyage, each man doing his best to push the memory aside. Death was no stranger on the Great Lakes. If sailors stopped to mourn every man the lakes consumed, they'd never leave port again. So they sailed. The wind filled the schooner's sails. The shoreline disappeared behind them. And as the Erie Board of Trade ventured farther into Lake Huron, no one aboard realized Scotty had never left the ship. The days that followed Scotty's death settled into an uneasy routine. The sails still had to be trimmed. The deck still had to be scrubbed. Watches still changed every 4 hours. The captain barked orders just as he always had, and the crew answered without hesitation. Outwardly, nothing had changed. But beneath the ordinary rhythm of life aboard the schooner, it felt wrong. It began with small things. A sailor would hear footsteps crossing the deck in the middle of the night, only to find no one there. Tools left neatly in place somehow ended up scattered across the planks by morning. More than one crewman caught himself glancing toward the mainmast, convinced someone was working high above him, only to discover empty rigging swaying gently against the sky. No one dared to say Scotty's name. Among lake sailors, speaking too openly about the dead was believed to invite them back. One evening, the schooner drifted beneath a clear sky on Lake Huron. It was really calm. The wind had nearly disappeared, leaving the sails hanging lazily from the yards. The lake had become unnaturally still, the sort of silence experienced sailors often distrusted more than a storm. The crew finished supper and settled into the night watches. Most turned in below deck, but one young sailor remained awake. He lay in his bunk listening to the familiar sounds of the ship. The timbers creaked softly. Water lapped against the hull. Somewhere above him, a loose block tapped gently against the mast. Then another sound interrupted the silence. It was slow, deliberate, almost like wood scraping against wood. At first, he assumed someone was moving equipment on deck, but the noise continued. Curiosity finally overcame exhaustion. He climbed the narrow ladder toward the deck and stepped into the cool night air. The moon hung over the lake, casting pale silver light across the schooner. At first, everything appeared perfectly normal. Then he looked toward the mainmast. There, suspended high above the deck, sat a man in a boatswain's chair. He was facing the mast exactly as though he was continuing the repair work interrupted weeks earlier. The chair rocked gently, although almost no wind stirred the sails. The figure never spoke. He never looked around. He simply continued working. The sailor froze. His heart pounded so loudly he could hear it above the gentle splash of water against the hull. He knew exactly what he was looking at. The shape was unmistakable. Scotty, still seated in the very chair from which he'd fallen to his death. The apparition slowly turned, not with the quick movement of a living man, but gradually, almost unnaturally, as though time itself moved differently around him. Then, without anyone touching a rope, the chair began to rise. It drifted upward, through the darkness, toward the place where Scotty had spent his final moments alive. Higher, higher, until both chair and sailor simply faded into the night. The young sailor stumbled backward before finding the captain. He struggled to explain what he'd seen. The captain listened in silence. Without saying a word, he followed the frightened sailor back onto the deck. They waited. Minutes passed. The lake remained perfectly still. Then the captain quietly pointed toward the mast. There he was again, Scotty. Exactly where he'd appeared before, working silently above the deck. The captain watched without speaking. When the figure once again floated upward and disappeared into the darkness, neither man moved for several moments. And finally the captain broke the silence. He told the sailor, "Go get some rest." The voyage continued. No explanation was ever offered. The captain never spoke of what he witnessed again, but everyone on board noticed something had changed. He no longer assigned anyone to work alone after dark. When repairs were needed near the mast, they waited until the sun came up. And whenever conversations drifted towards Scotty, the captain shut them down. Weeks later, the Erie Board of Trade deported Chicago with another cargo of lumber, bound once again across Lake Huron. The weather was favorable. The crew expected an ordinary passage. Instead, the lake had one final claim to make. Near Thunder Bay, hidden beneath deceptively calm water, lay a reef that countless captains feared. Before anyone aboard realized the danger, the schooner struck with tremendous force. The impact splintered timber below the waterline. Men were thrown from their feet. The hull began taking on water almost immediately. Orders rang across the deck as the crew struggled to launch boats while the schooner settled lower in the lake. Some escaped. Others did not. Within a short time, the Erie Board of Trade slipped beneath the cold waters of Lake Huron, joining hundreds of wrecks resting on the lakebed. Most shipwrecks fade into history, but this one refused. And in the years that followed, fishermen, sailors, and captains crossing those same waters occasionally reported something they struggled to explain. On quiet nights when fog settled low across Lake Huron, they claimed they could sometimes make out the silhouette of an old lumber schooner gliding silently through the mist. She carried no running lights. No voices drifted across the water. No weight disturbed the surface behind her. And if anyone looked closely toward the mainmast, some swore they could just make out the faint outline of a lone sailor seated high above the deck in a weathered boatswain's chair. Still working, still keeping his watch, as though he never realized the voyage had ended. Or perhaps, as though for some sailors, death was only another passage across the Great Lakes. So don't forget, my new book, Arsenic Anna, comes out September 7th. It's the story of a female serial killer. Took place in Cincinnati during the Great Depression. It's one of the wildest stories I've ever come across. It's a whole lot of fun. It's based on a real story that is just truly bonkers. All these men she killed and no one could figure out what she was doing. And there's also 2 more books coming out in September. Fear and Folklore Vampires and Ghost Stories and Graveyard Tales Indiana. Both are really fun. Both drop September 21st. I have three books in all coming out in September. So really looking forward to spooky season. It's almost that time. So hey, make sure you guys subscribe to the show and please leave a review. We're trying to get 150 reviews on Apple Podcasts before October, and that really helps more people find the podcast. And have you guys been to MonsterCityMadhouse.com yet? MonsterCityMadhouse.com. The new shirt, man, it's a whole lot of fun. And to be honest, I may or may not have been the one who gave the owner the idea for the shirt. So, the greatest cryptid tag team of all time has finally arrived. Straight from the deepest force of cryptomania comes the monster powers, featuring the Yeti and the Bigfoot, and an over-the-top tribute to classic 1980s wrestling, monster magazines, and larger-than-life personalities. Packed with colorful retro artwork, outrageous promos, championship gold, and enough cryptid power to shake the woods, this exclusive Monster City Madhouse design is perfect for wrestling fans, cryptid hunters, horror lovers, and anyone who appreciates old-school cartoon mayhem, brother. Whether you're tracking Bigfoot, searching for the Yeti, or just ready to watch the mega monsters run wild, this shirt was made to stand out. Let me tell you this, I was at CreepyCon in Knoxville with, my booth was right beside Ben at Monster City Madhouse, and he sold a ton of these shirts. Everyone loved this shirt. If you like old school wrestling, if you like cryptids, you got to go to monstercitymadhouse.com. And you got to use promo code SAVE10 to get 10% off your order. So be sure you like Southern Ghost Stories on Facebook and Instagram, and send your questions. I got a brand new email account I set up, southernghoststories@gmail.com. If you want to send in a question, a comment, shoot those over, and I always do a Q&A show once every 2 months. Looking forward to doing another one here pretty soon. October's coming, about one more month, and it'll finally be spooky season. I'm Alan Sircy, the American Historian, and this is Southern Ghost Stories. Coming October 2nd, the gates open at Smith County's scariest attraction, Nightmare Hollow. Located at 160 Marina Lane, Carthage, Tennessee, every Friday and Saturday from 8 p.m. to 10:30. Admission starts at $20 with Fast Pass and VIP options. Nightmare Hollow is a haunted trail located at Defeated Creek Marina and Campground. Recently rebranded from Nightmare on Marina Lane, Nightmare Hollow has made several upgrades for this season, including an additional trail, upgraded scenes, Fast Pass and VIP options, and a gift shop featuring local vendors and merchandise featuring our logo and characters. Come out and see what all the hype is about. If you love ghosts, cryptids, UFOs, and everything that goes bump in the night, then mark your calendars for the West Kentucky Paranormal Expo, happening September 26th in Mayfield, Kentucky at the Mayfield Graves County Fairgrounds. This incredible one-day event brings together some of the biggest names in the paranormal community, including Aaron G. Thompson from Netflix's 28 Days Haunted, Jimmy and Jeffrey from Outlaw Paranormal, The Wind of Rose, Josh Morris, Michael Huntington, Rachel Ravensville, and many, many more special guests and speakers. Your admission is just $15, and that gets you an all-day come-and-go wristband so you can explore at your own pace. Browse more than 35 vendors, enjoy delicious food trucks, attend speaker presentations and panels, meet investigators, hear incredible stories, and dive into the worlds of hauntings, cryptids, UFOs, and the unexplained. Whether you're a seasoned ghost hunter or just curious about the mysteries that surround us, there's something for everyone at the West Kentucky Paranormal Expo. Tickets are on sale now. For more information, visit West Kentucky Paranormal Expo on Facebook and get ready for one of the most exciting paranormal events of the year. We'll see you in Mayfield on September 26th. Monster City Madhouse, a year-round online store full of Halloween and classic horror shirts with an emphasis on the vintage look. Use code SAVE10 for 10% off your order. MonsterCityMadhouse.com. Free shipping and financing is available.